Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to memoQ Talks. My name is Mark Schreiner, and I, along with my co-host, Cedomir Pusica, will be your hosts for this episode, our first episode of memoQ Talks. And today we have quite a show because what we're going to do is we're going to start off, introduce ourselves, and then talk about why memoQ Talks. Why does the world need another podcast, right? We talk about why we're doing this and what you can expect and how you can benefit from listening to memoQ Talks. And then we're going to get into Cedomir's area of expertise, which is organizational learning. And we're going to talk about some of the best practices related to organizational learning. But first off, let me introduce my co-host. Cedomir, how are you?
Doing quite well, Mark. Thank you.
That's good to hear. And just for frame of reference for people who are listening, where are you?
I'm in Serbia, but recently I've been moving from one country to another. So it's really hard to keep up with my current location. In about a couple of days' time, I'm going to be in Vienna, then back to Budapest, and then back to Italy. I'm located and living in Italy for the past years. And yeah, now I'm kind of, just moving around.
You Europeans, man, always on the go. I'm American. I can't say I'm just going to go and move to another country and or visit 4 or 5. I mean, that's a long journey for us. But so you're going to be based somewhere in Europe. It sounds like multiple places.
Yeah.
I'm on the west coast of the U.S. in Bellevue, Washington, which is right across Lake Washington from Seattle. And so we're kind of on other sides of the planet, but we share something in common, and that is that we both work at memoQ, and we both have an interest in learning, right?
Absolutely.
And we're going to come back to your expertise in a second, but let me ask you this. Do you think learning is important?
Yeah, of course it is. That's one of the most important things in life. And I think what makes life really interesting. And, I can tell you now the story that when I was a high school kid, I would call myself a kid at that age. I was thinking, I'm going to, do something with my life, learn something, just 4 years, 5 years or something. And then just, go on doing it without having to learn anything more, because that would be an easy thing. Once you're done, you don't have to update your knowledge because it's always there. So my choice was the English language and literature. So I was thinking, yeah, it's a finite, area, you'll learn all the words and, there you go. You just speak to people and, you're making money. But thank God it's not like that. Life would be really boring without discovering new things every day. So yeah, here we are. And
no, that's
how
impressive.
about you?
Yeah, I think I love learning. I think it's rewarding, and it's also considering the world that we live in and how fast things are always changing, it's a necessity. It's you need it for survival. But I actually enjoy it. And you talk about you studied English. That's very interesting. I think about people like Joseph Conrad, who as an adult moved to England as a non-native English speaker, and learned the language, and then became one of the premier, writers in English literature all time. So, I mean, there are people out there that are continually learning and reinventing themselves. That brings us to the point of why we're actually doing this podcast, because there's a million podcasts out there on a million different topics. Some of them are quite general and some are quite focused. In the loc industry, there are both as well. Our area of focus is going to be about talking to loc industry leaders about their core area of expertise, whether that's in, leadership, technology, marketing, human resources, operations, privacy, security, etc. Any of those areas of expertise, we want to talk to industry leaders and drill down on their area of expertise and get some lessons learned and best practices so that we can all learn as an industry it's about, how to improve or continually improve. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
So we can do this podcast?
Well, let's give it a try.
Let's give it a try. And so we're going to talk more about that, and we're going to come back to your area of expertise, which is learning or organizational learning. in a second. But first off, let's go back and do a quick introduction in terms of what we actually are responsible for at memoQ. Would you like to
Hmm.
start, please?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I was hired in May, May the 4th. I insisted on that date for a reason. And I do, I work as a customer marketing manager. So yeah, I'm responsible for the educational part. This is, education and learning and teaching others how to use memoQ has been identified by leadership as one of the strategic directions of the company. So it's a really good move. And we believe that if we help users learn, move from 15% of what I know about memoQ to 25%, they're going to be extremely happy with what they know. They're going to be really thrilled, and they would understand much better how to, just benefit from all the features and from all the things it can bring to their daily life, and, just make their lives easier. So this is what I do. Um, I just started out, let's say, so making some progress, and hopefully very soon we'll have some, reasons to celebrate. And what
I've
about
already
you,
actually
Mark?
seen some. Yeah, I've seen some of the work you've done already, and I think we should all be celebrating already. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You talk about helping memoQ users understand more about the tool. I think that goes to basically any kind of app or tool that you have. Every time I figure out a new shortcut on my Mac, or when I'm using Word or PowerPoint and I figure out a new technique, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome, right? And it just
Absolutely.
makes me appreciate that tool that much more. And sometimes I think that when I start using a tool, it could be Word or whatever, maybe I should do a deep dive, but sometimes you don't know what features you need or which tools you need until you start using it. And so it's incredibly important, whatever tool you're using, to kind of continually be learning and stretching, so that you can basically optimize the use of that. In
Yes.
terms of myself, I'm also relatively new to memoQ, not new to the local industry. I've been in the local industry off and on for over 10 years in a variety of roles, both on the LSP side and on the technology side. Right now, I'm responsible for strategic sales director, which is kind of a fancy way of saying that I'm going to be targeting our market expansion in the regulated industries, which is life sciences and financial services, because we believe, based upon some of our current customers and also our understanding of the market, that a lot of our features and tools in memoQ align very nicely with the needs of those in the regulated industries. Now, I'm going to take my sales hat off and put it over here for right now, and get back to the show. As you know, by the way, I don't know if you can see that I'm in a professional podcast studio. It
Yes.
looks
It's
it
very
looks
nice.
like a normal kind of living room, but trust me, this is a professional. No, it's my living room. I I've been kicked out of my office by my wife and my kids, and because they take priority, and so I've been kicked out to the living room, which is better than the doghouse, but it's not my office. Anyway, um, let's get back over to you now. Let's talk about the importance of fostering learning in an organization, and I, you know n- not just in the context of using our tool, but just as an organization in terms of maintaining competitiveness, etc. Why do you think it's important to foster continual learning
Well, I don't know where to start really, but
anywhere at the
yeah,
beginning?
yeah. Things are developing fast, and everyone may have noticed that our daily lives are just updates on updates, and the
I like that.
technology is really developing very fast. And in order to remain competitive and to know what you're doing, to be to communicate with the world and to do the job you're actually paid to do, you have to learn, and you have to develop, and you have to actually find out ways to make many different tools available in the market to your use by combining their the possibilities there they offer. So it is really a research, and sometimes it's a blind, just plunge into the unknown and start exploring an area, and then you start making connections between different things there are, and it's amazing when you're across a multi, let's say, how to say, um, faceted,
Disciplines.
yeah,
Yeah,
multidiscipline, yes, and you can actually create those weird links between things that uh, don't really seem to be connected in the first place, and
that's huge.
it is
Th-
huge.
that
Yeah,
that's where these real quantum leaps in not just business but in science and in all kinds of areas, where you have sometimes it's outsiders to the space that they are able to connect and identify patterns that and then say, oh wow, if we take this from over here and put it together with this, it will equal something greater than those two disparate items. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you can just use different analogies, like
Mhm.
analogies from operations to actually direct your courses and your learning environment, and how you going to treat um, your, let's say, learning experience, how you want your users to learn. Then you can actually use something from biology and apply it in technology or in your, organizational development. So it's it's kind of very, very important to read, get exposed to many ideas, and study in whatever way pleases you the most, like video, you know, or written material, or just practicing, learning on the job and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that in a second, about different ways people learn. But first off, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning of your response there that organizations that are learning somehow become or stay competitive or able to stay competitive. I'm wondering if there's some other benefits to learning. For example, if everybody on a team or in an organization is exposed to opportunities to learn or encouraged to learn, do you ever see that as boosting morale or employee satisfaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have this culture at memoQ, and I've been exposed to it. And it's really amazing when you see that the company cares. I mean, maybe it sounds like a cliche, but it's really amazing just this, when you get this opportunity to, you know, just learn some days. Like, there's this amazing course we all did. So why don't you go ahead and give it a try and tell us what you think? So yeah, I think it boosts your morale, and you can actually have at least one of those, one more topic to talk about with your colleagues, and also to exchange opinions. So, in that sense, it's definitely an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. Um, Now, go back to what you were starting to say before about the different ways people learn. Could you talk a little bit about, the different ways that, well, maybe that you prefer to learn and that other people learn, and that, and then ways to kind of retain that?
People learn in different ways. And what I've always thought about, and recently very much so, has been that when you go to school, the mandatory 8 years of education that most countries apply, uh, you actually take those 8 years of kids' lives, and you're supposed to teach them things. And so what normally happens is that you get some kind of a hierarchy of knowledge among those kids. So you have the very clever kids, the super intelligence wunderkinds, then some, mediocre kids, and then you have some what, uh, pupils call dumb kids. But I don't believe that dumb kids
I don't think we
exist.
could use that word anymore.
I really don't believe that dumb kid actually exists. In some of in all the areas. Like, I believe that some things everybody can learn, and that they're just not presented in a way that everyone learns or prefers to learn. So not everyone has the same capacity or interest, maybe, to go deeper into certain areas, into certain subjects. But when you think most how we learn by analogies, by experience, and the only way we can learn is by actually making analogies between what we know and what's new. So if we manage to uh, transmit our knowledge to pupils in a way that you know somehow reflect their background, and their different styles of learning. And there are a few, and we can actually, I think, have much better results. And teachers are probably the most important actor in our society, and we should really cherish good teachers because they are rare. And when we find them, we should really try to keep them and stimulate them. And you know, they are the ones who decide the futures of those who they teach. And I can tell you on a number of occasions, like where teachers actually change the courses of one's career, like mine.
Hmm.
My English teacher was so amazing that that was like the decisive point for me. And I was thinking whether to go to electrical engineering and stuff, but uh, it was not just, it was the teacher that mattered. So and there are other people. There are people who start hating a certain subject because of a teacher, and I think that's really sad. And that in today's world, which now is hybrid, and online, and it's moving more into this digital area, I think we can do so much more and pick those great teachers and have them teach all the nations, and every nation has a great teacher and a bunch of them. Let's just use them and actually deliver the content in a way that everyone can learn. So that is, I think, the core of what I believe we should be doing, or at least start working on it.
An example that comes to mind of a great teacher using online technology would be the founder of Khan Academy. I used his videos to help my boys understand some really complicated math, and it was amazing. He was better than their school teachers, and he taught me stuff. And I'm sure everybody has their own teachers that resonate with them. But what can an organization do to make its content or its learning programs more compelling? Because I think we've all been through those, programs that is just kind of like click here, click here, click here, read this slide. And some people respond to that, but a lot of people don't. They just click through it and then, say, okay, course completed. What can you do to kind of optimize online learning or any learning opportunity for your team?
So, as I mentioned before, there are several people learn in several different ways, and you have visual types, you have tactile types or whatever they're called. People who like to read, and very different styles of learning. And I think the content you're teaching and you're trying to present should be compelling, should
Hmm.
in a way keep your attention,
Hmm.
not go on for so long, so that or if it does, at least keep the arguments really, how to say, riveting, so that people stay and continue watching or learning.
Hmm.
And you should somehow try to present the same content in different formats and say the same thing in a written word, in audio, in video, and through practical tasks. So you should combine what we have and what science has actually discovered so far, like the best ways people learn. We should try and combine those as much as possible. Maybe we won't always be successful, but, or be able to present everything, every single content we're trying to deliver in to cover all those different learning styles, but that should be our aim. And yeah, I think we should be relying a lot on science, and also on teachers who know how to teach. And we should be asking them and see good examples, learn and try to understand what we see is great about them, why we love them, and try to look for those qualities in new teachers or in our own approach to teaching. What do you think?
I think that's some great advice. Personally, if I read some material and then watch a video that's either complementary, supplementary to that, it just seems to kind of bring everything together. Ultimately, for me, though, it's actually the doing is where the learning is. And so maybe I'm maybe one of more of those tactile learners. But the more different kind of angles that I can hit a topic from, the better. And again, that's just me. Everybody, like you said, learns in different ways. Let me ask you this. How can an organization measure the learning? Because I mean,
Hmm.
most companies, they want to see an ROI depending on, regardless of how you define that, but they want to know, is this working? Is this effective?
Well, you just caught me off guard. They're
That's good.
probably they're
That's a way to learn, getting
yeah.
caught off guard is a way to learn.
Like what I found really helpful was asking the right questions. So when you come to a problem and you have to do a job, you have to understand what it is you have to learn in order to do it. And if you do that, it's quite measurable. And
Mhm.
what our organization now is trying to do, memoQ, is trying to apply the OKRs, and you know what these are.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and objectives and key results. So that's practically setting the objectives and setting the key results that will get us to those objectives, and try to be as quantifiable as possible, less qualitative, more quantitative. And some things you cannot measure in quantity, but yeah, you can somehow feel it. So we shouldn't be really machines, but then we should actually aim at setting the results as something we can measure. Like, is this step done? Is it not? So if we are learning and something is completely unrelated to our job or to our function, then we cannot measure. But if we keep track, maybe by means of a journal or something, of what we were doing and what we were actually uh, able to do before and what we can do now, maybe that can show us some kind of progress. And refreshing the knowledge and what you said, actually doing, is important to keep that knowledge useful and to remember it, for many years, for many months, and so on. So, yeah, how
Yeah. And,
do
and,
you have
and,
any
and,
idea how it could be measured? It'll be really, really useful to know.
well, and that's one of the reasons I asked you, is because I mean, some of these things that we all agree are really, really important for an individual and for an organization. Sometimes it's hard to quantify the results after we deliver that. And I mean, a couple things come to mind. I mean, obviously, if you're working towards an industry credential, right? Whether that's a project management certification, or if it's an IT type certification, achieving the certification then would kind of tend to show you that the education provided helped you achieve that certification, pass that exam, meet those requirements, and so it was effective. And you can look at pass fail rates, et cetera. But that's in a very very specific area. In terms of general learning, I guess one of the things that I've seen is just surveys. You ask somebody prior to the program, what's your level of competence or confidence on this particular tool, subject area, et cetera, and then survey afterwards, and see and track. But I think it's important for an organization not just to put courses out there, but actually measure in terms of participation, in terms of the core results. And I don't think that you or I have the definitive answer on that, but I do think that the important thing is that we're highlighting that it is important for organizations to kind of have some metric in place to measure the effectiveness. Um, Let me ask you this. I think one of the missed opportunities in some organizations and captured opportunities in other is learning from our own experiences and even mistakes. Okay, as an organization, and I'll give you a couple examples. When I was growing up, I remember sitting around and listening to my grandparents talk either to us or to their friends, and they would just tell stories. And they would tell stories about, things that you shouldn't do, like you shouldn't wear gloves when you're dealing with this type of equipment because it could be dangerous. When you're driving a car, here's some things you should look out. And they would swap stories about something bad that had happened to somebody, and we would learn from that. And even as a little kid, 5, 6 years old, I would internalize those life lessons. And, as an adult, sometimes those messages come back like, oh, you know what? I remember that story about something bad happened to somebody. I got to be careful here. You also learn like best practices. People talk about some families would talk about finances, and they will say, this might be a good idea. That might not be a good idea. Um, that's kind of a lost art of learning through storytelling. But organizations, I think, can do the same. Like, let's just talk about salespeople, business development people. They go out and they talk to customers, and sometimes they have great successes. Those success stories can be huge learning opportunities. Additionally, if they encounter an objection or an obstacle and they don't have a way of overcoming it, they can share that with their colleagues and then kind of collaborate on a better response. And so kind of capturing that internal knowledge from experience is really important. I mean, what have you seen, or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I've recently seen a really great video by Ray Dalio. You know Ray Dalio?
I don't. Please. I'm sorry. Tell me who Ray Dalio is.
He's one of those really famous wealth managers, and
Okay.
he wrote the Principles, the book, and he's really dedicated to the principles of life, and how to do things in the right way and find your own success. And he's a very, very successful man who failed, and once he failed so bad that he thought, he had two choices: either go back to the cubicle, because he was managing a huge investment fund. It really failed because he made a fatal mistake. He betted on something that never happened, and so lost money to all his clients. So he was in front of a dilemma. He was totally depressed, and that was a big learning experience for him, because he was just said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he decided what he actually can or cannot do in his life, and he didn't want to be to work in a cubicle back for some, I don't know, other investment firm or something. So he decided what he wanted. He wanted an adventure, and he said, okay, I'm going to reflect on the experience, on the bad decisions I've made, and of all the things that happened with that and why it happened. So a lot of retrospection, learning. That's the best thing. And that's one of his principles is always reflect on the obstacles, on what made you fail, and keep on going. Learn from it and get up and keep on going. And that's probably relating a personal story. We can all relate. And the fire, storytelling around the fire and everything, we still have that, I think, ingrained in our DNA somewhere. And we all love listening to a good story, be it with a sad ending or with a happy ending. So, I think the sad stories kind of ring a bell more, because people really fail more than they succeed. And so they can probably relate better, and it can be a real learning experience. They are more sincere, and I think this method could and should be used a lot, and that's why we're here, and that's why the idea that you mentioned at the beginning, to talk to the industry leaders, learn from them, like best practices. Where did they fail? Where did they really score some big deal? And that's really important. And before I pass the ball to you, I want to ask you, there is one really great book. It's about operations and operations management, and when I say that, it doesn't sound very
exciting,
very much exciting, no fun.
Oh my God, I can't wait to get this book on operations management. Oh my God, it's a real page turner.
Exactly. So, but this
sorry for all you people who are into operations management. I apologize. I'm sure it's amazingly dynamic, fascinating, and everything. But I mean, come on.
Yeah, but
please continue.
This book is called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. The Goal is a book which uses a story of a guy who is facing, a shutdown of his factory. And it's a story, a human story of that guy having a family and, having arguments with his wife, having a cocky boss, who's really treating him bad. And, he has, a lot of problems in the factory on the floor. So,
I was going to say it sounds like a country music song. His poor guy. His dog left him. He's got a flat tire in his pickup truck.
But it's really good. You can relate, because I've lived a similar story, and it was so interesting. And then step by step, he tells you a story. It's storytelling at its best, and that book is like one of the best business books ever written. At least that's what it says in the book.
He's very, very humble, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, but some real important people I listened to recommended it. It's like the most beautiful story, and it's really beautiful. And at the end, you have learned the principles of lean manufacturing at Toyota and Kanban and all those things without any effort. So it's so amazing, and that's, I think, is a really good example of how teaching should be done through life stories, like real life stories. I mean, he did invent those things, and he did say, like, I did it because I wanted to show that everything in business actually takes part in our life. It's part of our life, and I want to show you that these people who work in factories actually have families, and they actually argue. Maybe you don't care about that part, but if I show you that, you will understand that you're not alone. so it's really it's an amazing story. You just can't put the book down. So yeah, ball to you.
That's awesome. And say the name of the book again, please.
It's The Goal.
Okay, The Goal, and the author's name?
It's Eliyahu Goldratt.
It's on my list. I mean, I'm not even a listener to this podcast, but if I was a listener, that would be worth the price of admission right there. A good book reference, and especially because you've connected it, you've made it very relevant to what we're talking about. Done deal.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, hey, we're going to kind of wind this down here, but let me ask you, what can our customers and colleagues expect from your team going forward in the context of learning opportunities?
Okay, they should expect a lot, and they will be given a lot. And
that's awesome.
Actually, as part of these efforts, we are launching, and I'm going to say it now, memoQ Academy. And this academy you will find on the website academy.memoq.com, and you will find many different courses, and for translators, project managers, about product tutorials. You will see, we'll try to make memoQ, a bit closer to you, to explain how it works, why it's good, why people even use it, and try to speak the language of, everybody can understand. So that it's not such a big deal, for many, let's say, translators or organizations, to embrace technology and, to use it for their own benefit. Because there is a lot of, I think, fear among many people that technology is just too complicated. But the basic principles behind it, if you understand that, what we're doing, I mean, you're doing it already. This is just an easier way to do it. And this is what's going to happen. So yeah, academy.memoq.com. This is where a lot of things will be happening in the future. Pre-recorded materials and tutorials on a number of subjects. And we'll be doing a lot of lives as well, live webinars. But we will use those as a complement to what you already, and like the learning opportunity, the opportunity for you to ask questions, to, really engage and give your feedback. And we really want to talk to you users and understand what it is that you find really important, what you think we suck at and, could improve. So, yeah, we want to have an honest conversation, because the goal here, and I'm repeating, the goal is to teach everyone how to use the program better, and to learn as much as possible. So, and then you will discover, by learning this and that and the other thing, how it could apply better to your specific workflows, to the way you do your job. Maybe you will have an epiphany and say, wow, if I put this and that together, maybe it'll resolve many of my problems. And it definitely will. memoQ is an excellent program. It's an excellent TMS, what we call it now. It's a translation management system. And it can help both individual translators, freelancers, and companies of all sizes, as well as enterprises who have translation localization departments. So yeah, go ahead and check it out.
So Cedomir, I took my sales hat off and you just put it back on there at the end. But that's okay. That's okay. No, that's awesome, man. Hey, I'm super excited for the learning programs you're developing. I'm also super excited to be doing this podcast with you. I really appreciate that we've been collaborating on this together, and I appreciate your collaboration. You bring a lot to the table in terms of your experience. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with me, and actually in being our first guest. You've done a great job. And I look forward to one day meeting you in person, somewhere in one of those European countries that you seem to be fleeting about in, but possibly in our headquarters in Budapest. But hey, Is there any
chance you're coming anytime soon?
As soon as they open the gates. No, I mean, I think right now travel to Europe is okay. But I think the stance is that we just want to wait to see how things flesh out over this next couple months. Right.
Okay.
But I would love to come over. And when I do come over, plan on me camping out for a little while. I'm not just going to come over for a week and say, hey, bye. Nice to meet you guys. Bye. I'm going to stay there for a while. You won't get rid of me. Okay.
Great. That sounds great.
Great.
That sounds great.
Well, hey, thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.